Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located on planet Earth. It is time for another PulseWave report with yours truly, the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger Report. And we're kicking off another week. Last week's Bitcoin companion dot rolled out on the PulseWave report on your dashboard, available now to all those subscribers. It was a wonderful week. Markets did a kind of a U-turn twisting thing toward the end, but all in all, it was a good week. We wake up this morning to Bitcoin being up 4,250 points. You gotta love that. You gotta love it. Flirting with the $60,000 handle. And if you are a PulseWave subscriber, you already knew that. So where do we look to be going? Well, there's a lot of news that's been out. It's been overwhelming. I'm still not on top of all of the latest. I'm still playing catch up, but I will be caught up here rather shortly. Some of the news is out. It's not that important. It's just filler and distraction to keep your attention focused elsewhere other than where it needs to be focused, which is on the important things like the economy. Nope, they want you focused on non-essentials, things that have nothing to do with nothing and mean nothing. That's what they want. They want you to focus on the nothing. All right? And everything else that matters, they say nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Hoping that most people will take that advice and not look at the guy behind the curtain. Well, as you know, we don't play that here. Homie, don't play that. We're going to look at everything. We're going to look under the hood. We're not just going to be satisfied to kick the tires. We want to look under that hood. We want to check the engine. We want to check everything. All right, the interior. We're looking underneath everything. We're looking under the seats. We're looking in between the seats. We're checking everything. All right, we don't leave any stone unturned here. We embrace and look at everything so that therefore we miss nothing. That's the way you have to be these days if you don't want to remain ignorant. So I give you a choice this morning, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want the red pill or do you want the blue pill? Remember, if you choose the red pill, there's no going back. If you choose the blue pill, you can go right back to sleep after this live is over and stick your head back in the sand and pretend nothing's going on and nothing matters. So, you want the blue pill, do you? Well, fine. It's Monday. You're not ready for deep and heavy things. I get it. So you get both. Let's start off with the blue pill first. So there's a few articles circulating. Let's see. Talking about some things that are arising in the markets. And that is people are concerned because of Credit Suisse's Group AG joining Nomura and warning about potential significant losses related to an unnamed U.S. hedge fund client defaulting on margin calls. Margin calls are a big deal. If you cannot meet your margin calls, well, then your open positions must be liquidated because you lack the capital to keep those trades on. Doesn't matter if you're underwater on those trades and you've been doubling down using the martingale theory. You have to meet those margin calls or the positions are unwounded at your expense. Meanwhile, Morgan Stanley was shopping a large block of Viacom CBS shares, according to people familiar with the matter, a sign that the unwinding may not be over. Shares in Nomura tumbled 16%, most on record, while Credit Suisse shares were indicated down 7% ahead of the open. Still, the Euro Stoxx 50 futures were edging higher, while U.S. index futures slipped. Despite the Stoxx 600's strong outperformance since the end of October of 2020, the benchmark has been getting cheaper. The gauge's forward PE ratios have dropped since a record high last June, as a surge in earnings forecast has outpaced the stock's gains. That's kept valuations lower than global peers. So there is a little bit of excitement around this unnamed hedge fund. This is not the first time hedge funds have been in the news. We had hedge funds in the news during the GameStop situation. This just goes to show you, ladies and gentlemen, that historically, traditionally, the majority of hedge funds are completely whack. The majority of traditional mutual funds are whack, all right? And they only make money in bull markets, and some even can't make money then. There's a reason for this, ladies and gentlemen, because they're not really trading. They're using ploys and exploits and taking advantage of anomalies and gray areas within the law. All right? That is a problem. Okay? It's a big problem because when the government closes said loopholes, they're no longer able to make money. Okay? That's why you see a lot of hedge funds closing shop. I've lost count on how many we have seen close shop just in the last 10 years. There have been a lot. A lot of people calling it quits. And the head traders, they're saying, you know what, I can't make money here in the market anymore. I got to quit. I got to stop. I can't make money. The reason why they can't make money is not because the market has changed. It's because the exploits that they were taking advantage of, the loophole got closed. Their whole strategy was never built on the fundamentals of trend following. All right. It was never about that. It was always about exploits. That's a big deal because that way of thinking has not died out. We still have that way of thinking. Take, for example, again, okay, the margin call crisis that's going on right now. We're looking at potentially billions of dollars in losses. All right, and this is at Credit Suisse's prime brokerage units. All right, this is a big deal. This kind of reminds me of long-term capital management back in the day. And again, these were Nobel Prize winning mathematicians and physicists, okay? The smartest men in the room. Everybody was an egghead. Everybody was a big deal. A lot of papers behind acronyms behind their names. And they lost $1 billion, and the U.S. taxpayers had to bail them out. Because the claim was, if you don't bail us out, it is going to collapse the financial system. Now, this is back then. What about today? We no longer talk in billion-dollar increments. We're talking now trillion-dollar increments and quadrillion-dollar increments. More than the global economy combined, all countries considered. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, these individuals, or how they say it in political arena, bad actors, are threatening to bring down the entire system, the entire world economy, because they've been allowed to milk the system for so long. Okay. Now, Bloomberg reported this morning that much of the leverage used by Wang's Arcgos Capital Management was provided by banks including Nomura and Credit Suisse Group through swaps, or so-called contracts for difference, according to people with direct knowledge of the deals. It means that I don't know how you say this, Archegos may never actually have owned most of the underlying securities, if any at all. Many of the stocks were hammered on Friday, where volatility in early trading. They have since stabilized, and Viacom, CBS, Discovery, and a group of Chinese ADRs were trading mostly higher pre-market, reversing earlier declines for some of those names. Now, a Viacom CBS block trade that launched on Sunday has priced at $47 per share, according to a person familiar with the matter, after shares were said to be offered at $46 and $47 respectively. Viacom CBS Class B shares are up 1.5% to $48.94 in pre-market, while the less heavily traded Class A shares are up 6.7%. Class B slumped 27% on Friday. Shares in Discovery Inc. rose 5% after tumbling 27% on Friday, while U.S. listed shares of Tencent Music rose 4% after nearly halving in value last week. Viacom CBS, Baidu, and VIP Shop fell between 0.2 and 1.5%. This incident reminded markets of the dark side of leverage, likely leading some players to cut their risk exposure near record highs to avoid any serious losses if the selling snowballs, said Mario something. I won't even try to pronounce that last name. Investment analyst at online broker XM in Cyprus. So we have a situation here. Hold on one second. I got to put you on hold. I don't have any music to play. All right, I do apologize for that. Let me just make a note here in the live. So 36.42. All right, I have to let everybody know to fast forward to 36.42. All right. Okay, I'll make that note and I'll put it, I'll pin it also. I apologize for that, but that was a very important emergency call that I could not ignore. All right, so getting back to this. So what we basically have here, you guys, now I see that Nomura Holdings is a Japanese brokerage, and it was among one of the worst performers in Asia, plunging the most on record after warning of significant potential losses from an unnamed U.S. client. Now, the U.S. has always been on its soapbox about, other countries and no one is as free as us and we're so self-righteous, but it's always the US companies that's been causing the most problems and have been the security risk to the entire financial system. We go back to WorldCom and Enron. These were all US companies. All right, these weren't Russian companies, they weren't Chinese companies. All right. They weren't Iranian companies. All right. They weren't Afghanistan or Kuwait companies or Beirut companies. They were U.S. companies being allowed to cheat and take advantage of the system. They're not trading, folks. All right. They're not really trading. They're gambling. They're treating the market like a casino. They'll say, you know what, since I've raised $100 billion in capital, let me take the whole $100 billion and put it on let's say Facebook, and we're just going to short Facebook. Now that it just hit a new all-time low, let's go ahead and short it at the all-time low and see what happens. And then when it rallies $80 off the all-time low, they say, it looks like Buffy, I think we're in trouble. Yes, I would think so too. I think we're in trouble as well. Looks like we made a mistake there. What do you think? Yeah, it looks like according to the run this morning, it says that we're down $8 trillion. That's how they treat it. They don't give a darn. They don't care. They'll just blow that fund up, burn through all the money that they raise, and then they'll just start another fund or just go and sail off into the sunset somewhere while everybody else is left to clean up the pieces. That's what happens. It's a shame that it's allowed to happen. Thank God it doesn't happen on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, but from time to time it does happen, and it's always devastating. All right, it's always devastating. So I do believe that this is going to be something that continues. They're not going to close those abilities, those loopholes. Okay, it's just what it is. They get off on it. Okay, and there's nothing we can do about it. They are very well backed. All right, they have the best, biggest law firms in the country behind them. They've got senators and politicians in their pocket, and they can do whatever they want to do. And no one can stop them. Okay? So let's put the lid on this and then we'll move on. All right, so this is a piece, and let's check this one out. Let's see here. So this is another situation. They're mentioning the Paul Volcker rule and all of this. And the biggest macro change in the past 50 years was, the so-called, magician mathematic trick of taming inflation. Lately, they've been telling you, we're keeping inflation, around that 2%. And it's very easy to do that and massage numbers when you take out food and energy. Well, we take it up because food and energy is so volatile. No, it's not so volatile. It's the most truthful indicator we have of the reality of Joe Plumber, the man and woman on the street, the average person. But now, did you know that Mr. Volcker, Mr. Paul Volcker, was the first Fed chairman who required a personal bodyguard? Yes, the Hunt brothers, Penn Square and Continental, Illinois, which was oil. The Hunt brothers was, the silver fiasco. And the entire farm credit system were all strained by Mr. Paul Volcker's decisions. And Volcker was the first Fed chair who required a personal bodyguard. So this is a big deal. The Fed has a history of doing things, and then when they destroy the financial system, they go out and get bodyguards to protect them. Why do you need a bodyguard if you haven't done anything wrong? You should think about it. So here we are. We're back again, history repeating itself, okay? The entire financial system is being held hostage by these individuals, by the Fed, and all of their players, all their little moving parts. And after all, 44% of outstanding Treasury securities are being held between the Fed, which is a private corporation, and foreign official institutions. So we got a private corporation that calls itself the Federal Reserve. It's not government. It's not a part of the U.S. government. And foreign officials. So basically, America is a whore and a slave to the Federal Reserve and foreign institutions. She's been bought and sold like a slave, like a whore. And that's what America has become. Who owns America? A private company called the Federal Reserve, along with some other foreign institutions. They got a little piece too. Everybody got a piece. Sad but true. This is the reality of what we're facing today. All right, so you've had your blue pill, but I'm not going to let you go back to sleep. It's time for the red pill. Perfect segue from the whore of Babylon, aka the United States of America. Like mama, like daughter, right? Well, did you know that Baltimore City is no longer going to be prosecuting prostitution or drug possession? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If you are a streetwalker or a drug addict, you don't have to be afraid of prosecution anymore in the city of Baltimore. A little more than a year ago, right around the time the virus pandemic lockdowns began, Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby halted prosecuting minor traffic violations, prostitution, drug possession, and other minor defenses, a move directed at preventing outbreaks of COVID in regional jails, according to local news channel WBAL. Now, the easing of Baltimore's policing resulted in what they call a miracle. Crime in nearly every category decreased, confirming what Mosby and some criminal justice experts argued for years. Rough policing doesn't work to prevent more violent crimes. Well, anyone could have told you that. If a man or woman gets angry enough, they will kill, and no amount of laws preventing that will stop it. You can make a million laws against killing, but if a man or woman gets angry enough, they will kill anyway. Just like all the gun laws that are currently on the books, criminals ignore them. What do you expect them to do? They're criminals. That's why they're called criminals. Criminals will break the law no matter how many laws you put in place. Even if you strapped a body cam on every citizen, every U.S. citizen, and it stayed on and recorded all of their activities 24/7, people would still commit crimes, murders, etc., etc. No amount of policing or Big Brother is going to ever stop that. So on Friday, Mosby held a press conference in her first public appearance since a lien for non-payment of back taxes was placed on her home. She told reporters they could speak to her attorney about those issues. She went on to say putting people behind bars for petty offenses isn't working. Quote, a year ago, we underwent an experiment in Baltimore. What we learned in that year, and it's so incredibly exciting, is there's no public safety value in prosecuting these low-level offenses. These low-level offenses were being and have been discriminately enforced against Black and brown people. The era of tough-on-crime prosecutors is over in Baltimore. We have to rebuild the community's trust in the criminal justice system, and that's what we will do so we can focus on violent crimes, end quote. And with that success, she said her COVID policies will now become permanent. Did you get that? COVID policies and permanent in the same sentence. Why did they tell you that this is the new normal and there's no going back? Because they meant it. And here's the admission right here. COVID policies permanent. And America's failed war on drugs and users across the metro area is over. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's more. This is a complete shift in how the city handles crime. In the last 12 months, violent crime is down 20% and property crime has fallen 36%. Homicides were a tad bit lower, but remain some of the highest in the country on a per capita basis. Mosby asked public health researchers at Johns Hopkins University to review the crime data over the last year. What they noticed was a dramatic reduction in calls to police concerning drugs and prostitution. Clearly, the data suggests there is no public safety value in prosecuting low-level offenses, Moby said at the news conference. Hopkins researchers also found 1,431 people who had charges or warrants were immediately dismissed at the beginning of the pandemic. Only 5 out of 1,431, or 0.0003%, were rearrested. Susan G. Sherman, a behavioral health professor at Johns Hopkins, told WAPO that data on repeat offenders with only 5 re-entered the system is pretty unbelievable. In a world where drug decriminalization is happening around the country, the impact on the community is important, Sherman said. And Mosby really values having an understanding of these impacts. When it comes to violent offenses, carjackings, murders, armed robberies, attempted murders, and drug distribution, we're all still prosecuting you. The police will still arrest you. But on those low-level crimes, we are no longer using our limited resources on these low-level offenses, she said. Now, a year ago, Baltimore underwent a grand experiment on policing, and perhaps it's working. Here's a former police officer's take on all of this. Quote, crime is a symptom of the disease of our society. For years, we've asked the police to address this disease by locking people up. We merely address the symptom, not the disease, said retired Baltimore Police Major Mike Hillard of Law Enforcement Action Partnership. Mosby's pandemic social experiment has so far resulted in possibly a new direction for the city. But whether the experiment in Baltimore can be replicated elsewhere remains to be seen. Other liberal cities have tried this and miserably failed, resulting in soaring crime all around. San Francisco is one of those liberal cities that has defunded police and eased rules on petty crimes, but has seen an explosion of all sorts of violent and nonviolent crimes. Murders are up. People are quickly exiting the metro area, and as we come to find out more recently, businesses are leaving too. Due to rampant shoplifting, nearly a dozen Bay Area Walgreens have closed up shop. The crime is so bad in the metro area that even TV reporters are being robbed. Can you see that? We're live here on channel. Hey, run your wallet. Shut up. Run your wallet. Give me that purse. Matter of fact, give me the microphone and give me the camera too. Getting jacked on live TV. Wow. Wow. Crime is so bad that even TV reporters are being robbed. As for Baltimore, it remains to be seen if crime in general will stay low given Mosby's actions as pandemic restrictions are being lifted. Warmer weather is ahead, and the opioid crisis in the city continues to rage on. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, another experiment gone bad, right? Let's break this down for a minute. First of all, being a lifelong resident in the tri-state area, yes, I have lived in all three tri-states. I've lived in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. So I can speak authoritatively on the subject. Baltimore has been Hell's Kitchen forever. That has never changed in the past 30 plus years. 30 plus years going on now. Think of how many politicians have come and went in Baltimore. Think of how many senators you've had, how many mayors. Think of how many governors. Think of how many police commissioners. Think of how many district attorneys. Think of how many state prosecutors. Think about all the people who have come and went. And yet Baltimore is still the same. It's so bad that they filmed a hit TV series there. People thought that it was just some made-up fantasy show. But The Wire was not fantasy. And if you really want me to be quite honest with you, I think The Wire was actually a watered-down version of the reality of living in Baltimore. It's just what it is. You can't make this stuff up. Again, The Wire was very entertaining, but it's worse than The Wire. And yes, the things you've seen on The Wire was straight facts. As far as the political environment, straight facts. The school system, all of that, straight facts. All of it, straight facts. 100%. All right? But here, you want to hear something funny, though? That still doesn't stop tourism. People still want to go to Baltimore. They got to. You know, they got the Baltimore Harbor. You know, they got that. They got the zoo. They got the best zoo in the tri-state, in my opinion. Baltimore Zoo is dope, but it's right there, smack dab in the middle of all the tomfoolery. So when you get into the zoo, you're like, am I going the wrong way? Oh no. I'm supposed to be going to the Baltimore Zoo. Instead, I end up in New Jack City. Where am I? But nope, the zoo is right there. Right there in the middle. Wow. And when you go in the zoo, it's dope. Now, I haven't been in a while. Last time I went was some years ago, but it was still fly. Baltimore Zoo is by far better than Woodley Park Zoo. Woodley Park Zoo was the man back in the 70s. Back in the 1970s, Woodley Park Zoo was the bomb. All right? Since then, the bomb exploded. It's no longer. I don't even know if is it still a zoo? Are they still calling it a zoo? I mean, to my recollection, didn't all the animals die? I mean, that's a whole other broadcast. But yeah, Baltimore has its issues, but it had the bomb zoo though. That zoo was all of that. We always had fun going to that zoo. But outside of having a zoo, how do you put a zoo in a zoo? The zoo is located in the heart of the zoo because the city is a zoo. I mean, straight up. If I had to give people who are unfamiliar with the area a rundown or comparison, I would say it's The Wire meets New Jack City meets Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome meets Terradome meets Cyberpunk. All right, it's awful. It's awful. Um, the poverty is gross. The boarded up abandoned buildings and boarded up abandoned homes. Talk about eyesore. You wouldn't think that an actual human being lives in those places, but they do. You mean, how does someone live in a boarded up? What in the world? But now you would think that a mosh pit located within the middle of a cesspool would be disgusting enough to keep even the rats away. But no, 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 no. Baltimore was also the location of one of the biggest scandals in modern financial history. You outsiders have no idea what I'm talking about. I forgot. You got to also add the Sopranos in there. Baltimore is also the Sopranos. Just imagine if Tony Soprano, instead of living, what was it, in Jersey? What if he lived in Baltimore? Same thing, no difference. So Tony Soprano moved from, I think that's how it ended. You know, people have always been, debating what happened when it ended. I think what happened was they just grabbed him in that restaurant, and then they put him in a van and drove him to Baltimore, and then just kicked him and his family out the van and drove away. Because Tony Soprano, I'm telling you right now, he got his game on in Baltimore. Remember the real estate hustle that the Sopranos had? Remember that real estate hustle? Well, Baltimore became the centerpiece of the Tony Soprano real estate hustle. When I say real estate hustle, I mean just you would not believe the amount of fraud. I can't even. All right, to really appreciate how bad Baltimore's real estate environment was and still is, you would have to have seen The Sopranos and are familiar with all the real estate hustles that they had going on, and that just only touches the surface. It's bad. It's just as bad if you combine the medical fraud in New York with the medical fraud in New Jersey. For those that don't know, New Jersey and New York have the highest cases of Medicare fraud in U.S. history. No other states have as much fraud as those two places combined. I'm not pulling that out of the air. I'm talking from actual personal experience. Personal experience from the regulatory law enforcement side, as well as from the business side, because I had a mortgage company back in the day. I'm going to tell you right now, some of the biggest and baddest gangsters I have ever met were in the real estate game in Baltimore. I'm not kidding. I mean, some real dudes. Like, you don't want to mess with these dudes. You don't want to cross these dudes. All right. I don't know if you want to call them mafia or cartel or whatever you want to call them, but they some bad dudes. I will never forget these dudes. And some of these dudes are so bad. I don't mean street gangster bad. I mean white collar gangster bad, like smuggling arms and human trafficking bad. Bodies in the trunk bad. All right. Yeah, those kind of people that move like that, and also got pictures in their house with presidents, with U.S. presidents and other foreign dignitaries. I kid you not. Facts, straight facts. There are more gangsters in the real estate arena than there ever were in the stock game. I can tell you that right now. Wall Street has its sharks, but no sharks like in real estate. Real estate has some of the biggest, baddest folks on the planet that make the Wall Street jerks look like toddlers. And I'm not kidding. So in the scenes in The Wire where they showed you they were burying bodies in the boarded up houses and buildings, facts. Facts. That they was running crack out of them houses, facts. Human trafficking out of those houses, facts. Even to this day, facts. Facts. It's a cesspool, man. Baltimore is jacked up. But they're not alone. They're not alone. Maryland had issues too. All right, during this whole so-called financial crisis, don't get me started on PG County, Maryland, and Montgomery County, Maryland. Now, Montgomery County, Maryland was and is the triple OG of the state of Maryland. That's where all the fat cats live. They lived in Montgomery County, all the big old McMansions, Montgomery County, especially the Chevy Chase and Bethesda area, big money. All right. I know. I went to one of the schools there, and the teachers was pulling up in Cadillacs and mink coats. I kid you not. All right. Facts. So they had their problems too. All right. They had issues in the real estate game. I remember when the foreclosures started hitting way before it even made the news. The foreclosures was popping long before it hit the news, long before you knew what was going on, before the 2008 the fall, end of summer, fall, because really started the last 2 weeks of August is when the market started snitching, telling you that something was wrong. And then by September, it was game over. But long before that, things was popping off. And Prince George's County, Maryland, man, woo, we had entire neighborhoods in foreclosure. And I'm not exaggerating, entire communities. Imagine an entire community, and the whole state basically was foreclosed on. You're talking about a travesty. That right there is a whole nother broadcast in and of itself. So Baltimore's not alone. More fraud happened in Baltimore than anywhere else, but it wasn't the only place where the fraud was happening. PG County was crazy. And then when you went, you looked at like Mitchellville and that whole area, that Landover and all that, man, it was crazy up in there. Crazy up in there. So Baltimore's not the only place. They just had the most real estate crime. Crime was crazy. So it's not shocking that they'd be like, look, man, we're so busy with all this other stuff. Well, we're going to leave you drug addicts alone. We're going to leave the prostitutes alone. Now, personally, I don't know why they was locking up drug users anyway. All right, just because you caught a man smoking crack, he's not hurting anybody but himself. Now, I understand locking up drug addicts who were committing crimes to support their habit. Obviously, if a dude is on drugs and he carjacking somebody, or he shoots some pregnant woman, okay, obviously that person needs to go to jail. But they also need rehab, but they need to go to jail. But I'm talking about just, the regulars. They got regulars. Police got regulars on their beat. They know who all the crackheads and stuff are. So if they need to meet their numbers, they're gonna go find George and lock him up. But they know George is strung out. They know George is a crackhead, and they're gonna find drug paraphernalia or maybe some crack on him. Really, mostly they won't find crack on him because he would have smoked that already. But they're gonna find drug paraphernalia, or he may have some stolen goods or whatever. They know they can lock him up real quick. They can arrest him. He's gonna be out by the morning, but they could go ahead and arrest him so they can make their numbers look good. Like we're cracking down on crime, but they're really not. These are their revolving door people. They've been arrested 24 times because Charlie needed to meet his goals and he knew this person was an addict. Just like they do with the prostitutes. They know Becky's a prostitute. Oh, they go Becky, let me go get her. Let me go lock her up. I need to arrest her. I need to meet my numbers. I'm short by 2 arrests. And if I don't get these 2 arrests by 3 p.m. today, I'm gonna be suspended. So I need, or written up. So I need to go ahead. I need to arrest Becky. Let me go find Becky real quick. There she go. Go get her. That's what they do. For those of you who don't know, that's part of the game too. The crime game. It's a very big business. That's why I'm surprised about what they're doing here in Baltimore. They must have a situation in Baltimore where they are able to wiggle out of the private prison industrial complex. So maybe they're not affected by that like some other states are. So they can do this. But other states can't do that because they have contracts, and unless the contract, is terminated and they don't renew it, or expired or whatever, that's how they're able to do this. But most states have a problem. They can't really do that because they got to keep that certain capacity at those jails and prisons, because that's what their contract states: 90% capacity at all times, or it costs the state money. So this whole thing is a game. That's why they're defunding the police and all that. It's just a psyop, and they want to get your attention somewhere else. So anyway, today didn't go the way I wanted it to go because I had that call, but nonetheless, we still got it in. I have so much more that we need to talk about, and we will. We're gonna get it done, but it just won't be done today. Stay tuned though. We got some big things coming. Not at liberty to say just yet, but there's some big things coming, and I think it's gonna really shock a lot of people, but for the good though, for the good. All right, I promise. All right. All right. So smash that like button. You know what it is. All right. Remember, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Peace.